I'm Jason. I'm a member of the HSMAI South Carolina board, currently filling in as interim president. And we're excited to have you on the call today to kind of jump into some really great information about hidden fees. A lot of work and research has been put into this. I think you'll find this very useful and very valuable. And so we'll be doing these series bi-monthly via webinar. It will also be hosting a couple of in-person events throughout the year. The next one hopefully will be at the end of March in Columbia. And once we have additional information, we'll be glad to send that out to you, and be sure to check our social page as well as our website for a couple of those updates. It's a great opportunity for everybody to get together, network, and get together and learn different things, and be able to socialize and kind of familiarize yourself with some of the other members of the chapter here in South Carolina. So just moving over to the next slide, I just want to introduce the board real quickly. This is our website, just FYI, HSMAI great information on this site. It's a great resource, so be sure to visit there for our upcoming events. Follow our socials. We post a lot of information on there as well. So our board consists of a lot of great folks. I won't go through each and every one of them here, but we have a lot of great talent on the board that is really excited about 2024 and really sharing a lot of great information through these series on the web, as well as some in-person events, as I mentioned earlier. So without further ado, I would like to go ahead and get into today's series, which is our first series in the webinar, The Hidden Dangers of Hidden Fees. And I just butchered the title, but I will turn it over to Pete, who's going to lead us through this. Again, I really think it's going to be very insightful for you. We'll take some Q&A, so if you have questions throughout the call, be sure to drop those down into the question and answer box. We'll try to get to those at the end of the call. Without further ado, take over, Pete.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you guys all so much for coming out to the first webinar of the year. As Jason mentioned, we're going to be doing these a lot more frequently. So as you have ideas or topic suggestions, definitely let us know. Our goal with these webinars and just HSMAI in general is to make sure that we're able to make everybody who's a part of the organization and anyone just tuning in a better hotel marketer and a better marketer in general. So anything that you guys have that you think would be interesting, let us know, and we can kind of incorporate that into our calendar of webinars and live person events. With that being said, we're going to dive right into today's main topic, which is the hidden danger of hidden hotel fees. To kind of set this up a little bit, we've seen a lot of news and a lot of press about resort fees, hidden fees, and different ways where the ADR does not always actually equal the price you end up paying. As a result, we did a survey to 300 people who have traveled recently, and we're going to be looking at that data specifically and what we can learn from it. So to go ahead and kind of set everything up here, let's talk about the kind of the rise of hidden fees. So based on what I was able to tell, it goes back to pre-1997, where somebody had the great idea of incorporating a resort fee to help account for the ever-growing amenity set and great things that resorts and hotels have to offer. Just like with email marketing, SMS management, and you name it, hoteliers have been doing everything they possibly can since then to completely destroy this really cool tool. Not just hoteliers, but marketers in general. We find a new hammer, then we want to find everything that looks even remotely like a nail and bang the crap out of it. Kind of give you an example here. This data is from Skift that you see here. And it really does show the ever-increasing resort fees that are charged to guests as they're booking that vacation. This is not always a good thing. So to kind of go from there, as those fees have increased, consumers, the FTC, attorneys general have all started warning hoteliers, hey, we really don't like what you're doing here. It gets confusing and it gets frustrating. This one article, as an example here, comes from 2010 out of Houston, where people were not happy with the resort fees. 2017, the FTC did a pretty thorough study with the economic analysis of hotel resort fees. And the links to all this stuff, just so you guys know, it's at the bottom of the slide, but we'll also have that as a deck where you can grab that and dive into that stuff in more detail. But really the summary is people said, hey, we don't like this so much. And as a result, we start seeing suits, Hyatt, Marriott, Sonesta, you name the flagged property. They've probably been hit with some type of legal issue related to the charging of resort fees, to the point where last year the Junk Fees Prevention Act was introduced in Congress. It didn't go anywhere in that session, but it is back again. And while they've been telling us, Now they're no longer telling us, and now it's more specifically coming to fruition. This year, there's a new bill that would hopefully crack down those resort fees. And California is going to be the first state in the nation to actually have legislation in place that starts in July that will stop the junk fees, as they call them, resort fees, or if it's on a concert ticket, the additional convenience fees for online transactions. All those are going to be put under scrutiny. And like they say, where California goes, so goes the nation. So as hoteliers throughout the US and North America, wherever you might be listening from, we need to pay attention to this because this is a change that is happening, whether we like it or not. And the hoteliers who succeed are going to be the ones who adapt the quickest to this change. So based on that, there's a lot of news, a lot of information coming out about resort fees. And we asked ourselves, what's that customer sentiment? So we asked 300 travelers, what do they think? We asked them what fees were the worst, what fees impact conversion rates. And then I think one of the most important things we learned is, from a traveler's perspective, what solutions can hoteliers put in place to avoid creating the negative sentiment that goes behind these resort fees, hidden fees, partitioned pricing, whatever you might want to call it. Available for free. So go to travelboommarketing.com/hidden-fees. Or once this deck is out and the presentation's over, we'll send this out to everybody as well. So download that. Everything we're going to be talking about today actually comes from this study in a leisure travel trend study we did recently as well. All right. So looking at all that data, the question becomes, what is acceptable in terms of a resort fee? Well, we asked customers and they said they would prefer $0 as a resort fee or hidden fee, which is not unexpected, right? You would expect that to be the case. But what we started asking is, okay, as we move that needle up a little bit, where does the consumer start to feel those pain points? If you charge 5% or less of any type of surcharges, resort fees, wherever that might be, a vast majority of travelers are going to be okay. I'm not going to say they're going to be happy with it, but they're going to be okay with it. And they're not going to bail on that process. Now, that does mean that there's 37% of the people out there that are going to start having some heartburn at that 5% rate. Once you start increasing those the resort fees or hidden fees to 10, you're going to start alienating a vast majority of your travelers. 30%, and only 30% are really willing to pay that big of a bill on the checkout screen. So everything we're going to be talking about today is really going to be highlighting the danger that you run into charging these resort fees. It's really not a magic, wand that you can wave and automatically increase RevPAR by charging resort fees. And that's what we're going to try to dig into here. So digging into more about what's acceptable, well, what we did find is that not all fees are created equal. A lot of the times, if there's a fee for an expected level of service, that's going to be a major no-no for any guest, and as a hotel, something that you don't want to charge. We also found that the hotel experience that the guest receives is a major driving factor in how they feel toward those fees. As an example, if you are a roadside hotel and you have a small workout facility and a small pool, you probably don't need to be charging a resort fee. That is the kind of experience that really rubs people the wrong way and is typically where those lawsuits and whatnot come from, is because you really don't offer that resort experience, yet you're charging for it. What we also found was that hidden fees, if you're a boutique hotel, vacation rental, bed and breakfast, any type of those type of properties, the traveler really does expect that to be the price you see is the price you pay type mentality. They really don't expect to see a lot of things added on to that booking process. We know that from particularly where VRBO and Airbnb had been in the past, to where you see a pretty cheap nightly rate, and then all of a sudden there's the cleaning fee, there's this fee, there's this fee, and this fee, and it really does leave a really bad taste in consumers' mouth. Now, with that being said, we looked at the 3 fees that really were the worst. We asked about a ton of different types, and these three were the top. So the very first one was the online booking fees. 75% of travelers did not like this fee. And to be quite honest, I understand why. It's 2024. Everyone expects to be transacting online. It's not a convenience, it's just a reality. So as hoteliers, vacation management companies, property management, you need to factor in that online booking fee as a cost of doing business and find some other way to recoup it. If you have an online booking fee as part of your checkout process, really, you need to rethink that. It is probably going to be hurting your conversion rate, which we'll dig into in a little bit. Now, Wi-Fi fees were a little bit different. This was the second most despised fee that we came across in our study. And 74% of people oppose those Wi-Fi fees. But kind of going back to this very first bullet that we talked about, people expect Wi-Fi to be included with their stay, but you can upcharge for a faster connection. So Hilton is a good example where you get free Wi-Fi if you're a member, but if you want the super fast Wi-Fi, that's only a couple bucks a day. But the nice thing is that's a service above and beyond what's typically expected. And then the last one that was really despised was 73% of travelers didn't like the parking fees, which you definitely can understand why. If you're a resort type property, particularly a vacation rental or boutique where you're expecting people to drive to your location, you need to account for where they're going to be able to park. And as a hotelier, there's the value of that real estate that you do need to account for. But again, you need to find other ways and just say, hey, we're charging a parking fee. Now, the one caveat to that was the properties that are in a city center. I was in Charlotte last week and had to pay a parking fee, but I was uptown and expected that. You're in a city, you expect to have to feed a meter or find a parking garage, something along those lines. So that's definitely something for you to consider here. Now, the one thing that we thought was actually pretty interesting was the resort fees that everyone talks about being the worst thing in the world. Only about 56% of travelers had a problem with the resort fee. And a lot of that was more based on the fact that resort fees that are charged by properties who don't necessarily deserve to be charging a resort fee, like we kind of talked about earlier. So kind of digging into a little bit more about what's acceptable, this is what we found, that the amenities really matter. About 70% of respondents say that that quality of your property is going to define if you can or cannot charge those resort fees, or in some case, hidden fees. You have an amazing property with beautiful common areas, dining options, lazy rivers and water parks. People get that there's a charge for that. There's a real value there. It's a resort and they expect to pay a little bit of a fee. Again, roadside inns, not so much. Now, the other thing to consider too is fees are very regressive in the sense that a $25 resort fee on a $100 a night property is not going to be acceptable. If we look at that first slide where if you go above 10%, you're only getting 30% of the possible bookings that you can. Well, that same $25 resort fee on a $400 a night property, well, that's a minor charge from that traveler's perspective. So those are two things really important to keep in mind. So next question, this kind of leads us into that we know people don't like fees, that fees kind of will impact their decision-making process. But what it also will do is impact your guest reviews. So this is where we're going to kind of get into the meat of it, because what we found is 52% of the respondents said it will strongly influence their stay, their review, if you have hidden charges during that checkout process. 42% said it will slightly influence their stay. But let's put those numbers together, round it up, and say anybody who stays at your property, if you charge a resort fee, it is going to have some impact on their reviews. People use reviews to make decisions. So the guest that you have staying with you now that may not be happy and has a lower review is affecting all your future bookings. We're going to go look at some data from our 2023 travel trend study and found that 81% of travelers will not book a stay without first looking at those reviews. So you put these two pieces together. You say, wait a minute, the people who stay at my property and are slightly unhappy with my fees, they're leaving lower quality reviews. A majority of the people who want to book in the future are looking at those reviews. I'm not only impacting my conversion rate today, I'm setting myself up for a lower conversion rate in the future. And those reviews stay. They stay out on the web forever. So something we really want to pay attention to. Not only that, those same fees do impact loyalty. We found that almost 79% of travelers are going to be less loyal to those brands who have perceived as charging hidden fees. Think about the cost that it takes to drive a one brand new guest to your property. Branding, marketing, meta search, pay-per-click campaigns, you name it. The best guest you have is the one who stayed at your property in the past. If you create a process by which you have these deceptive fees during the checkout process, you're spending all that money finding a new guest only to give them an experience that they don't feel is trustworthy during their stay, and they're going to be less likely to return. Again, this all kind of leads back to what we want to find as the ultimate solution for these fees, but also the actual impact to any customer that we run into. So knowing that it hurts reviews, it hurts loyalty, the question then becomes, at the end of the day, how does that impact my conversion around the website? Which, you know, in most cases, we see 75+% of traffic, of people visiting a website are coming from, you know, mobile devices and, you know, online, and we have, you know, a vast majority of bookings taking place online. We need to make sure that that website that we have and the experience that the customer has is impeccable and does not have a problem. Again, these hidden fees can cause a big problem with that. So let's go ahead and take a look at this conversion rate impact. We found that 31.5% of travelers, they're going to abandon the booking process when a hidden fee is discovered. A third almost of your potential guests could leave that process. Now that breaks down into two different ways. One, 12% will change their hotel choice when fees are found. Again, nobody's going to want to lose 10% of their potential bookings. And almost 20% will actively avoid hotels where they found fees in the past. That's the super scary number, because if you think about it, all those people that you've brought to your website, you've got them to find out about yourself, they may not be coming back if they feel like you've been deceptive in the past. A big part of being a hotelier is being trustworthy, being a true innkeeper. And if they don't trust you in the checkout process, they're not going to very likely trust you during their actual stay at the property. Now, where that number breaks down, we kind of have a more detailed question, but we found that about 16% said they're willing to pay hidden fees if it's a good value, typically on higher end properties. There is 19.5% said they would avoid properties where they discover fees in the past, and 12% would change them. There are 3% of the people out there who just, I think we've beat them down enough, and they've rolled over and said, you know what, if I have to pay a hidden fee, I just have to accept it. So, we don't want those people to feel that they are beat down to stay on our property. We want them to feel happy and looking forward to their, very well-earned vacation. So similar to those numbers, what we found is 75% of travelers are more likely to choose a hotel with transparent pricing. We asked this in a couple of different ways. We first said, are you more likely to stay at a property with transparent pricing? And then we asked the converse of, are you less likely to stay at a property that has hidden fees? And those numbers pretty much all bear themselves out to around 3/4 of any given customers are going to want to stay at a property with transparent pricing. So this is important. So we know that we can improve our conversion rate by having fees that are acceptable to a guest, which brings us to the ultimate solution, which is that transparent pricing solution. I think if we can get here, this is the ultimate way to maximize occupancy, maximize conversion rate, RevPAR, all the metrics that you have can be done through this solution. Travelers are demanding it. The law is now starting to demand it. California case in point, and lawyers are starting to demand it. So my cheesy dad joke of the day is this is a great example of transparency in the hotel space. So that's that is my one dad joke of the day. So hopefully it was hilarious and you guys all appreciated that one. So let's keep talking about transparent pricing. We saw on the previous slide, 49% of the properties or people will choose transparency over hidden fees if the total is the same. To break this down a little bit, if you are a property, you charge $175 a night and a $25 resort fee, $200 total to stay at the property, versus a property that charges $200 a night, but is transparent pricing. The only thing you pay additional is taxes at the end of the stay. The data suggests that the $200 a night property will have a better conversion rate and definitely will have better guest satisfaction, better reviews, better conversion rate throughout the board. So to me, this says this is where we need to be thinking about testing and optimizing to get as close to this transparent pricing as we possibly can. And 92% of travelers are more likely to pay additional when they see those charges up front. So going back to that previous example of the $200 a night property versus the $175 a night property, could that $200 a night property charge 205, 210 ADR, whatever it might be, because they are creating that trustworthy relationship with the guest and are showing this is what you get, the price you pay, you see is the price you pay. People are going to be much more willing to accept those charges. Again, it all is going to come down to making sure that you are creating this situation where guests feel very trustworthy in what you offer. Just like before, what we did find is that 77% travelers view a property much more favorably when they see those rates. So I don't think you have to necessarily hide what your ADR is. You just have to make sure that you're being transparent. And I think ultimately what we're going to talk about is some of the hurdles, but we want to make sure that we are on an even playing field, which is some of the hurdles that we do find in price transparency. Well, I kind of broke these hurdles down to three things. The first one is OTAs. In the past, less so now than before, but OTAs or third-party resellers would often present the room rate separately from any type of fees. So if you're on a meta search or TripAdvisor or wherever you might be, you might see an OTA and say, oh, wow, it's way cheaper to book through there. Until you get to the end and realize that, oh, well, they're just showing me the rate without any fees. A lot of times hotels would try to combine those two and you'd create that mismatch and you'd fall out of rate parity, which is a big problem. Luckily, the OTAs and a lot of those third-party resellers are starting to get on board with a more transparent pricing model, which is a great thing for us. The next thing we have is the comp set. This one's actually pretty interesting. So if you are a property in a resort destination and you have transparent pricing, another property has a massive amount of deceptive pricing where they have a low ADR but a lot of fees, that's going to be a challenge for you. We're going to have to find a way to work around that because we don't want a customer having a knee-jerk reaction to where they see a cheaper property, they book it, and they realize they don't realize that they actually paid more than they should have. And then I think the last hurdle is from an accounting perspective. This kind of goes beyond the marketing element, but not all fees are really created equally from an accounting perspective either. If you are a property management company, you may get a vast majority of the resort fee to cover front desk, operations, maintenance, all that kind of stuff that goes along with that. Whereas if it was part of the ADR, that may be distributed separately to all the stakeholders, owners, investors, all that type of things that may go there. So that is a hurdle that I think hoteliers are going to need to address from an operational perspective to make sure that we're offering transparency, but also taking care of all the other mandatories that we have in, the hotel space to make sure we're covering everybody's, salaries and expenses appropriately. So the solutions. The very first one, if my clicker would work, is you got to get your rate feeds in line with your direct pricing. This one is so important. This honestly goes beyond hidden fees or partition pricing, whatever you want to call it. You got to make sure that the rate that you feed to your third-party resellers is the rate that matches your direct pricing. Rate parity is the holy grail in terms of, driving direct bookings. And past data suggests that even if people want to book direct, if you are even $1 off from what someone could book elsewhere, they're going to book through an OTA or a third party than to just book through you and pay more money. So that's very, very important. The next thing is we know that transparency is really positive to travelers. We need to market that aggressively. That's a selling point. On your site, you should be talking about the fact that the price you see is the price you pay. You're a trusted partner. Once you make this booking, you don't have to worry about additional fees or blah, 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 blah during that checkout process and your stay. Make this something that differentiates yourself in the market because people are going to trust you more. And that is ultimately a huge part when someone's planning the vacation of their year in many cases. From there, working with your local market, your chambers, DMOs, whomever that might be, including your competitor set, to make sure that your market is one of transparency. It makes it a lot harder to have a transparent pricing solution if the guy down the street is charging a massive resort fee. If everybody can work together to just say, hey, this is important. It's better for the guest's perspective. It's better for everyone's perspective. That's a great thing. Now, that's a big ask, and that's something that's going to work on in each individual basis. And then I would say partition out those optional services. Hilton does a good example of this, where you get free Wi-Fi, but if you want phenomenal fast Wi-Fi, you pay a little extra. And we know from the data that people are okay with paying for things above and beyond your typical hotel stay. So are you able to pare back what is offered on your default room rate and charge additional for late checkout, early check-in, valet services, whatever you want to do? Is if you can break that out to make it more of an apples to apples comparison to other properties, I think that's a great thing. And then ultimately, again, this goes beyond just the pricing model that you have, is make sure you're doing a great job in your pre-stay automations to upsell that customer. Getting access to the second wallet, as we call it sometimes, is huge. If Jason, since you're helping host this, let's say you're staying at a property and you choose the entry level, say, angle oceanfront unit. Well, if I hit you a couple times via email and text saying, hey, did you know you can increase your experience, get a better room, and for only $10 more per night, you can stay in the oceanfront suite. From his perspective, it's a small price to pay because he's already paid for the vacation to have a better experience. But also what you're doing is you're not locking yourself into that initial high ADR. You're working that person up through their experience. And that might be things like, pre-stay, hey, check in 2 hours early for X, or check out late, or go ahead and pre-do this or that to give them more benefit of their stay without actually having to increase the ADR side of it. The reality is there is no single answer. Every market is going to be unique, and testing is going to be critical. The good thing is OTAs are moving in that direction. But then again, everything is going to be unique. I think research and testing is critical before you decide to go down this whole transparent pricing model, which I think in the end of the day is going to be where the market heads. It's just who gets there first. And I think whoever gets there first does really benefit. One of the things that we always say here at TravelBoom is ABT, always be testing. Test your way to the ultimate solution for transparent pricing. Because what you may find is you don't have a high resort fee, but there might be a small one. And it's a small one for people having extra access to the pool or amenities or booking food and beverage discounts, whatever it might be. Test yourself into the ultimate pricing solution. That's going to lead to the best possible conversion rate for your website, the best possible guest satisfaction, which is going to lead to reviews, and it's just a whole cycle. It's critical that we do this, and I think testing is the solution to get there. With that being said, that's mainly what we wanted to cover today. The data that we got came from the 2023 Leisure Travel Trend Study, which is here, as well as the Hidden Fees Study, which we just talked about as well. You can get both of those at travelboommarketing.com. But then we'll also send out links to this data in the post follow-up. With that being said, I think it's kind of turn over to you guys to see if there's any questions out there. And if anybody wants to put something in there, they're free to do so. But while we're kind of waiting on that, I did want to kind of share one story of a hotel group, here in South Carolina, who was experimenting with this last year. And what they had done, and this is actually unbeknownst to us, we were looking at the analytics and we realized there was a problem. We saw their conversion rate on their website tank. We're like, what is going on here? So we looked into it some more. What we found was that they had reduced their ADR and they had increased their resort fee in a way of, one, being more competitive in the market, but then also being able to better allocate those resort fees to various departments. And we realized it by looking at the site and the conversion rate. We then reached out to the property, talked to them about it, and realized the issue. We then tested our way to a solution that said, wait a minute, if you reduce your resort fee, increase your ADR, that they can pretty much get the same RevPAR without that negative impact to their conversion rate. So, we've seen this bear out in real life, that transparency or heading toward that model is a good solution. But again, I'd love to hear other people's thoughts or feedback on what we talked about today.
Hey, Pete, and I think I also mentioned in a previous call with you, We actually had a hotel that was in a market that had several comp set hotels that were adding a resort fee. And the ownership of this hotel was like, everybody's doing it. We've got to do it. We've got to do it. And we were a little hesitant because it was new to the market. A lot of the hotels in the comp set didn't really have a reason and for adding this fee. They had no added value. They had no on-site restaurant, no spa, nothing. We had a lot of those things that you could purchase on site and do. So we kind of stood back and decided not to. And what we saw from that by not going with the crowd was a shift. So we started seeing some of their business shift over to us. And we did a poll with some of our front desk team, asking what was the biggest reason you chose us versus the other hotels that you're staying in the area. And a lot of it was those upcharges and the resort space. And we still maintained a strong ADR, and then eventually was able to succeed the market in ADR and grow that revenue in the market as well and still share. So, it's case by case. That's not always the same case in every market and every hotel, but that was just one that I saw that we've worked with over the last year with that's come up where, everybody in the market's doing it. Why don't we do it? And it may not always be the best case. So,
Yep. Well, yeah, I think
like, go ahead.
I'd say the other thing too on that, Jason, as well, is, by you doing that, you are solidifying that guest as a future guest as well. We always say the moment someone steps foot on your property is the first opportunity you have to earn a repeat stay. And, if they come to your property and they're already like, oh, I got charged this fee and that fee, you're reducing guest satisfaction and it's going to impact you down the road. So the question becomes is, in your specific example, what happened the next year? Did that comp set see a further decline and you saw yourself getting those guests from previous other properties because they trust you and your team much more?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It doesn't look like we have any questions. So I'm going to take that as that this was, as I feel it was as well, a really great presentation that covered a lot of ground and was very insightful on a lot of different things. So, of course, if there is questions or if you want to have a discussion afterwards, feel free to email us or contact us through the website or our social accounts. We're happy to chat with you after the meeting. I do want to thank Pete and his team at TravelBoom for taking the time to put this presentation together. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of insights and a lot of research, and I know a lot of work went into it with him and his team. So I really wanted to just say thank you, Pete, team, for taking the time to join us this morning, and everybody on the call. I think we have about 11 folks who have joined us, including our newest member of the board, Jessica, who is will be directing our social media. So a couple other board members as well. Thank you for joining, and the rest of the teams here in South Carolina. We really appreciate your time. Something popped up. Excellent job. Thank you, John. Yeah, I agree. Excellent, John. So anyway, that's all that we have. I do want to just kind of mention that we have some upcoming series as well. These will be bi-monthly on Zoom. And then we're going to try to have at least 2 to 3 in-person events each like every I would say every other quarter. It just depends on what venues are available and that type of thing. So we'll keep you updated. Again, check our website, check our socials. That's where we'll be updating a lot of this content. And that's all for me. Pete, any last moments, notes or thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, I would just keep saying that, pay attention to the news, see what's happening from the overall market and test your way to success. It really is the only way. Shameless plug, if you guys need help with that, we're always here to help at TravelBoom. So check us out. We'll definitely be able to help you in any way we possibly can.
Absolutely. Thank you all for your time today. Thank you, Diane. I saw your message as well. It's good to see you in the chat and on the call as well. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye-bye.